Hello there. I think what we're going to do today is try some Obsidian for the first time. I have a couple of Apache Tears that I've been thinking about trying for a while now. And I'm going to do this design called Tic Tac from Jeff Graham, available on the archive.org Wayback Machine. You can find this design that he released into the public a while ago. I'll put a link in the description. And I've been putting off doing Obsidian for a while, in part because I heard it can just kind of, explode as you facet it. But it's also very dark, and you can see my finger casting a shadow from behind. So these pieces have a little bit of light play coming through them, but kind of the standard test of what a stone will look like when it's cut is if you put it on a white piece of paper, kind of how it looks there will be how it looks when you cut it. It's not going to lighten up significantly so long as there isn't a rind or other weird things on the outside. And so even though these pieces are light, and if I put a flashlight on them, they glow nicely, which a lot of rough material will do. I don't see any fractures in either of them, but you're not going to look at it with a light shining from this far away. In all cases, it'll be like this with a light from above. So this will be a good test of how much this will actually lighten these stones when I cut them. And I'm also doing a couple other tests with this where on this stop, I just have super glue holding things in place. And this one, I have my hybrid method of I made a wax, attached some wax to the dop and then squished it down and then put some super glue between there. So this is the hybrid method where it's wax and super glue. And really, perhaps the benefit of doing it one way or the other, the super glue is certainly easy. You just stick things together and put the glue on. But I found transfer to be a little bit tricky. Whereas with the hybrid method, wax can be kind of a pain for some people. But I find it's easier both to adjust after the fact if I mess something up and need to align, especially on transfer, and also transferring from this to the other side of when to do the crown. I think it's easier to remove the wax than it is to remove the super glue. Tomato, tomato, people have their preferences. I guess we're ready to get started. After just a little bit of cutting in and revealing a window on both sides of the stone, you can already see veils popping out. Whether they were there before or not, I'm not sure, but they're definitely there now. You can see on the inside they're running this way, and I have a drop of water on there to make it easier to see inside. But it's running kind of northwest to southeast, where that light is reflecting right at the end of my fingernail, sort of in and out of the stone from this perspective. And there might be another small one. I think there might actually be another one in the other stone as well. So these aren't going to be clean stones, but we'll see what we can do and see if they hold together. So our first stone is roughly preformed in terms of the pavilion. It looks like I might be able to get about a 6 or 7 millimeter stone out of this, which is kind of the largest distance between the 2 points, or the smallest distance, I guess, because I'll have to cut in on the other sides. Before I go and do the girdle and establish the size on these, I'm going to switch over and cut in the other one so we're both on the same page. Because this one I have to use a larger dop than the other one, so that's about 5 millimeters or so on the interior there. It'll be a little closer cutting in this one. I've cut in the stone in my right hand here, and you can see I didn't go to a point on all 4 corners, and I forgot when I was originally thinking of how big these stones would be. I don't have to go to a corner or a point in all those corners because the corners are going to be cut down into 4 flat facets. And so I'm actually going to be able to do a little bit larger stone than I originally thought. But now that I have a rough size, this one is about 9.5 millimeters. Maybe I'll go down to about 9 by the time it's done cutting out the 360 stage here. I'm going to go in with this stone now, and it's at the same height as I did for the previous one, so if that works with this stone, then we'll be good to go, and I'll be able to use that as my guide. And maybe I'll transfer between the two one more time just to make sure that they're the right size, but after I get the size established, I'm just going to finish one stone before moving on to the next one, because taking them out and retightening things, you can get very small adjustment errors as you if you tighten it more in one stone than the other, or slight variations like that can lead to problems down the road with registration errors and getting the facets lined up. But we'll see what this looks like, and if I'm able to cut in those corner facets on this one, then we'll be on the right path moving forward, or I'll have to make them both smaller, but we'll see. Well, I suppose it had to happen, since doing a matched pair. One of them, of course, has a problem in one of the corners where it's a little bit indented, and I'm thinking it just won't cut out quite enough with the size of the stone that I have now when I cut in this 45-degree angle. This one down here is just about the size of the two edges of the facet that I have to cut into, so I think it would be okay. But this one is a little bit indented, and so I think I'm going to have to make the stone just a little bit smaller, which also means cutting in the other stone again. They are about 8.8 millimeters right now, and I think just going down to 8.5 or so will be fine. Should be just enough to get rid of this here, and that assumes there's no more problems. Well, I wound up making a liar out of myself. These are both now ready for polish. I had to make a couple of last-minute adjustments, getting a couple of cracks out of the corners there, and it helps that there is a small little break facet in the very corner. Let's see if I can get it. It's a little triangular facet that brings things to a level girdle. I think these are now around 8.5 millimeters. I'm not entirely sure because my calipers are kind of on the fritz. This is technically on right now. I can only see things when I tilt it a lot, so it's like 9.5 millimeters or so, I think. But I can't see anything when it's straight on, so I'll have to fix that, probably just to get a new battery. But I think it's 8.5 millimeters. I'll check it again once I'm done with the whole stone. But we're ready for polish, and I'm going to go straight from the 600 on the resin bonded disc here to my final polish of 50,000 diamond. I'm going to try on tin with one, and actually I'm going to do 50,000 diamond on tin with one, maybe that one, and then cerium oxide with a phenolic lap on the other one, which I guess will be this one, and just see how well they compare in terms of cleaning up and getting a polish, just to see if one or the other works better for Obsidian. Well, 50,000 on tin is working pretty well. Cut in the main facets already, or polished the main facets already. You can see the filament in my bulb reflecting in the center of that, which is what I look for. And I just have to cut in or polish those little accent facets, and then the little triangle one down near the corner. I'm not sure if I'm going to do the girdle or not. I may leave that at the 600 stage, just because it's going to be thin. Well, I'm going to call it on the cerium oxide after trying to polish the 4 main facets. Got a little more than halfway through, and I just keep going to the next one because I keep getting these little cat hair scratches, which you can see on the left big facet there, kind of going almost up and down in this view. They're going kind of northwest, southeast from the relative to the girdle. I just can't seem to get rid of them, and it's not necessarily the cerium oxide. I know that works great for a lot of people for doing things like quartz and glass. It may be my lap, it may be my cerium oxide, which is in the original bottle. It's a million years old. It may be contaminated. Maybe there's something in my lap that got kind of caught and is causing a little bit of scratches. I don't know. A lot of people, I think, don't like phenolic laps because they can kind of lead to rounded edges. So maybe there's something in there. Maybe using too much pressure, too much water, not enough water. There's lots of things that could be causing cat hair scratches. But for me, I'd rather just go back to something that I know works. So I'm going to finish this one on tin with 50,000 diamond and call it good on the cerium oxide for now. Well, I got a little gung-ho and finished the stones without really recording anything, so we'll just talk about it while I go through the transfer process here. With the CA glue, it's really just the same thing as dopping it up. Put some CA glue on there and a little bit of accelerant in some cases. It didn't work out in this case, as we'll see in a minute. I don't know if it just wasn't secure enough or I didn't wait long enough for it to fully harden. But what I do is take a razor blade and heat it up and try to scrape away a little bit of a gap and then knock it off with another blade. But as you can see, the wrong part fell off. So I was going to do that again later and switched over to doing the wax, which goes a lot easier because I can really scrape away a lot with the X-Acto blade. And it's really just heating things up until I can get an impression. Kind of burned my wrist on the flame there. And then a little bit of glue, and then put the wax back down, and we're secure. And then that knocks off relatively easily after scraping away some of the excess wax. One tap. I cleaned it up a little bit, and then I redid the super glue, and it still took a lot more to knock off the original dop, but the other side stayed secure because I added a lot more super glue and a little bit of that paper towel mesh combo. And in polishing, I used 50,000 diamond on tin as usual, and that's the original after 600, and then you can see a little bit of frostiness on the bottom of the stone there. And then after a few swipes, there's only just a little bit of a scratch on the very right side running parallel to that other rectangular facet. But I was happy that these stones came out to almost the exact same carat weight of 2.16 and 2.15 carats. They're interesting. It was a cool experiment, I think, and like Jeff Graham said in his original design, the interest a lot in these ones is a lot more about the reflection than the what interior light bouncing that you get from the stone. Because head on, these are very dark, but you get a lot of light play from the facets themselves, which adds a lot of interest.